Okay, welcome to everyone to ANC3-4G's meeting. This is our regularly scheduled meeting. We skipped all the meetings in August. We don't ordinarily meet in August. And so this is our regular our second Monday in September meeting. As you can see, we're still meeting virtually. We probably expect to continue meeting virtually at least until the district goes to phase 3 of the reopening, and until the community center is open as well for us to have meetings there. We encourage your participation in the meeting, where you can do that through the Q&A function. Commissioner Clayman is going to be sort of the gatekeeper, and if you've got any questions that you want to ask or any comments you want to make, you can put them in the Q&A function and Abe will recognize you. He's also going to recognize other people who are participating in the meeting tonight. There'll be a number of them who are going to be panelists that will have their video as well, so they can participate too. I want to emphasize too that the meeting is being recorded. We record all of our meetings, and then we post them to the ANC's YouTube channel so that everybody can see them. And we'll do that over the next week or so. Okay, we'll have each commissioner introduce themselves first. Shanda, you want to begin? You need to unmute yourself.
All right, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Shanda Tuck Garfield, and I represent ANC3-4G02 on the part of the district that's closest to Oregon Avenue in Utah. It includes the Knollwood Retirement Home, as well as St. John's College High School, and the Episcopal Children's Center. Thank you for coming.
Becky, you want to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Hello, I'm Rebecca Madak. I'm 3-4G04. I go from Nebraska, Utah, about Tennyson, Broad Branch back to Nebraska. I have Lafayette Elementary School and Lafayette Park in my single member district.
Abe, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Abe Clayman, and I'm a commissioner for ANC 3-4G01, and that's Hawthorne. I'm part of Barnaby Woods, and I'm also the secretary, so I'll be taking the minutes, which is why you'll see me looking over here or taking notes during the meeting. So nice to see everyone and looking forward to a good meeting.
Okay, Chris, you want to introduce yourself?
Chris Frombeluti, 3G07, area bounded by military, Nebraska, and Nevada. It's nice to see everybody.
And you're joined by Jerry tonight. Jerry?
He is. Our families are bubbling, if that's the right name. So, hi all. I'm Jerry Mallett's commissioner for 3G05, which is the east side of Connecticut Avenue from the Circle down to about Military and across over to Broad Branch.
Okay, thank you. I've neglected to introduce myself. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of ANC3-4G. My single member district is 3-4G03, and that's basically the area between Nevada and Nebraska and Broad Branch, and includes things like Ingleside and the Carnegie Institute. And we welcome you all here tonight. We do have a quorum, so we can conduct business. So the first order of business is to consider our agenda for the evening. The agenda has been posted on our website and on various listservs around the community. Are there any modifications or changes anyone wants to make? Okay, if you just signify by raising your hand or saying aye, we'll adopt the agenda. Aye?
Aye.
Okay, adopted 6-0. Okay, the first item is I have a number of announcements. Because we didn't meet in August, a lot of things have sort of piled up. But a number of these relate specifically to the upcoming November election. And it's going to be a very different kind of election than the Board of Elections has run previously. And so I'm just going to repeat some things that we've talked about before, but there are a few more specifics now. The key dates for voting in the election are, first of all, right now, you should be checking your voter registration information to make sure that it's correct and to make any corrections if it's not. This is to ensure that you get your ballot in the mail on time. And we're going to be providing links in our minutes to a number of these places where you can check your voter registration or some of the other information that I'm about to describe. Second, in early October, the first week in October, the Board of Elections will begin sending out mail-in ballots to every single registered voter. And so you should be looking for that in the mail. Third, in mid-October, or as soon as you get your ballot and are comfortable with voting, you should mail it back in, or you can deposit it at various Dropbox locations. And those locations are on the Board of Elections website, and we'll have the specific link to that in our minutes. But you can do that at sites for all over the city, and you don't have to, it doesn't have to be one in your neighborhood particularly. You can do it at any one of those locations. Then October 27th through November 2nd, there will be early voting centers, and those are scattered around the city, and that they're usually in larger spaces so that people can come in and practice social distancing, and they can accommodate a large number of people. And those early voting centers will be open from, as I said, from October 27th through November 2nd, from 8:30 in the morning to 7 at night, excluding weekends. Then finally, on November 3rd, there will be also a number of voting centers open around the city. For instance, in our neighborhood, the community center will be open on November 3rd for in-person voting, and also St. John's College High School, as well as Lafayette Elementary School. All of those will be voting sites on the day of the election itself. There's a link at the Board of Elections website where you can find the nearest locations for you, but you can vote at any site across the city. It doesn't have to be the one that you ordinarily would vote for in your precinct or anything else. It just has to be any voting site you can vote. With regard to the DC Board of Elections as well, they are holding a virtual town hall on September 17th, this Thursday, from 10:30 a.m. to 12 noon. And board officials and staff will be describing the upcoming election and answer questions about voting. So if you've got any questions about that, you can attend this webinar, or you can just send an email to info@votesafedc.com, and the Board of Elections will try to answer your questions. Next, this is also related to the election. On September 10th, the ANC and the Chevy Chase Citizens Association and the Shepherd Park Citizens Association co-sponsored a candidates forum for the at-large council candidates. There are 24 candidates on the ballot. And there were 2 sessions with 8 candidates in each. And still we haven't gotten to all of the candidates. And so there will be a third session with hopefully another 8 of the candidates on September 23rd. And that's going to be at 7 o'clock, and it will be another virtual meeting, of course, a Zoom meeting. And we'll have the link for that in our minutes as well. And if you have any questions that you'd like to submit, you can submit those to either Robert Gordon or Mark Pattison. Both of those are the moderators for the forum, and their email addresses will be in our minutes as well. A couple of other things about the election. There's going to be a Chevy Chase Citizens Association forum for ANC candidates on September 17th. That's this Thursday at 6:30. And there's a link that's been circulated on some of the listservs, and will also be in our minutes for that as well. And finally, with regard to the elections, write-in candidates are invited to declare themselves for ANC 34G06. There will not be an ANC candidate on the ballot in that single-member district. And so that position can be filled by the person who receives the most write-in votes. And to qualify for that, there are only 3 very simple qualifications. The first is you have to reside in the single-member district for at least 60 days prior to the election. That would be if you have moved there by September 4th. You must be a registered voter in DC. And then you have to file an affirmation of write-in candidacy with the Board of Elections, but that doesn't have to be filed until the week after the election. So there's plenty of time to do that. And anyone who wants to run as a write-in candidate certainly is invited to do so. We don't want to have that position left unfilled. Next, a non-election announcement with regard to Neighborhood Watch. As many of you know, Samantha Nolan is a citywide coordinator for Neighborhood Watch. She's conducting a virtual training for anyone who's interested, and they can contact her at nolantutor@yahoo.com. Next, there is going to be a hearing at the Committee of the Whole at the Council tomorrow on the Lafayette Pointer Park and Lafayette Pointer Recreation Center Designation Act of 2020. This is the renaming of Lafayette Park and Lafayette Recreation Center in honor of Captain George Pointer, whose descendants lived on that space and who were displaced when Lafayette Park and Lafayette Elementary School were built. The ANC supported this change of name in its July 8th, 2019 resolution, and we will be testifying at that hearing tomorrow as well. Finally, there will be a change of the date for our meeting, the second meeting in September. September 28th is the Monday when we would ordinarily have our meeting. That's Yom Kippur, and so in deference to that, we will move our meeting from September 28th to September 29th for that week only. Okay, does anyone else have announcements? No, I don't see anyone raising hands. Okay, we'll go right on to the substance of the meeting then. First, Jerry, you want to report on the coronavirus impacts and available resources, just the update that we typically give at the beginning of our meetings?
Sure, I just have a few items to talk about. I'll talk about some business information first. And this is all related to actually the COVID-19. The Little Beast is going to be expanding and having a pop-up, which will open up later this week. It's going to be Bocato Gelato. It's going to open later this week, and it'll be the second pop-up that they've hosted. And it's really a really good thing because it provides some innovation for our businesses to help them through this very trying period. So that's one item. We've had another related item like that. A new restaurant has taken over the spot through a lease agreement that was previously occupied by Capital Crab and Seafood, and that's a restaurant called RNF. It stands for Real Nutritious Food. So they are now occupying the building that was formerly Capital Crab and Seafood. And Capital Crab and Seafood menu items are being incorporated into the Avenues menu items. So that's another outcome of what's been going on. I'd like to mention that today was the deadline, and the businesses hopefully will be getting some support in the near future because an application was submitted for the Main Street, the Chevy Chase Main Street, and that was submitted by District Bridges. And there were over 110 letters of support received by the community, organizations, associations, many of our commissioners, and hopefully they'll get this grant because they're the ones that we've been working with most closely on this. And the grant is supposed to be awarded by the end of the month. And that will provide $175,000 for the support of Chevy Chase Main Street. And what usually happens is if goals are met from year to year, it's an additional $150,000 in the ensuing years. So all that money would be very helpful to our businesses at this trying time. Related to that is before the end of the month, there's another grant program that the district is sponsoring to help businesses, and that's called the Great Streets Grant. And that will provide up to $50,000 to businesses that apply for that. The Connecticut Avenue corridor in Chevy Chase is considered a great street, so businesses in our area will be able to apply. And I know of 3, there might be more, but I know of 3 that will be applying for that. It's a very competitive grant process, but hopefully some of them will get those. In terms of some data involving COVID, you all read the papers, you probably know as much as I do, but it's been going up and down in DC. 4 days ago, we had a high number of cases, highest in over a month, of over 80, yet yesterday there were only 40. So it varies greatly. We do have about 20 more people with COVID-19 that are in hospitals in the DC area than we did a month ago. But luckily for DC as a whole, there have been no new reported deaths in the last 5 days, which is obviously very good news. And on one personal note in regard to that, before I was allowed to come up to Massachusetts and bubble with this guy over here, I had to get a COVID test of my own. And so my wife and I did that, and it was, we didn't know what to expect. It was very easy, very simple, no problem at all. It took about 30 seconds. So I encourage people, a lot of our fire stations, including the one in Forest Hills, provides them. And if you're hesitating because you think it's a very invasive procedure, at least my wife and I did not think it was invasive at all. And you know, the more tests, the better we can cope with all of these things. So that's it, Randy.
Thank you, Jerry. That was very informative, and you know, I'm glad that we're moving in the right direction right now. Anyway, let's hope we are not plagued with another wave, as some other places have been. I think people are still continuing to be pretty careful, as we all must be.
Let me just say that in Massachusetts, they seem to take COVID-19 much more seriously than they do in the district. I've hardly seen anybody without a mask. And it's quite strict and rigorous, and that's why it's one of the lowest states in the country for COVID-19.
It's true.
We all need to be careful, continue to be careful. Vigilance is the word. Okay, the next item on the agenda is, unless anybody has any questions. Anyone have questions for Jerry? Okay, the next item on the agenda is revisiting and this time possibly voting on a change in the location of the proposed Capital Bikeshare station from Lafayette School to the southwest corner of Northampton Street and Broad Branch Road. And Jerry, you want to take that issue up?
Sure. And I'll just expound on that little background that Randy just gave. So several months ago, there was a petition, over a couple of hundred neighbors signed it. It was posted at Broad Branch Market, and that petition was for a bike share at Lafayette Elementary School, where the current Chevy Chase Farmers Market holds court every Saturday. And because of the pandemic and the spacing requirements that farmers markets are required to follow, it wasn't really possible to put that Capital Bikeshare in the location that was originally envisioned for it. So alternatives were looked at, and one alternative that DDOT came up with was to place the Capital Bikeshare in the street on the southwest corner on Northampton as it abuts Broad Branch. And this would be right adjacent to Broad Branch Market. And DDOT met with Tracy Stenard, and I hope I pronounced her name right, who's the owner of Broad Branch Market, because there were some specific concerns that needed to be addressed there. And I believe that Aaron Goldbeck is on this call. And somebody could look, is he on this call? Could somebody tell me? Yes, he is.
Yes.
So he's going to be presenting for DDOT. And I know that there have been letters both of support and some concern that commissioners have received over the last month or so about this. So there might be other people that want to speak to this. And, but I'll turn this over to Aaron at this time.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you, Aaron, so you can talk. Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak right now. And Aaron, if it'd be helpful, I'm happy to put something on the screen, like a map or anything.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, so I have a little presentation here, which I'm happy to, if you can give me screen sharing, I can walk you through it, or I can email it over to you real quick, whatever works for you guys.
You should be able to screen share.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure out how. Well, I'm not sure that I see a option to do that.
You know what I think I may need to do? Hold on one second. If we make you a panelist, I believe, promote to panelist. Okay, you should see a button now. Oh, I think that booted Aaron out and he has to come back in. 1 second, everybody.
Okay, I'm back. All right,
You're
so
back.
I will,
Great.
pull up my presentation here. Okay. So, here we are. All right, well, thank you everybody for having me. My name is Aaron Goldbeck. I am a bike planner at DDOT. Myself and my colleague Greg Matletsky have been working on the station for some time. See if I can figure out how to get this into full screen. Is that it? Nope. Sorry, just a second. There we go. Okay. So here's a little bit of the timeline of the station here under consideration. Actually, this begins a little bit further into the past. Back in 2018, I had community members reaching out to me asking for a Capital Bikeshare station somewhere in the general area of, the intersection of Broad Branch Road, and I believe it's Northampton Street Northwest. Back on August 10th, 2019, there was an initial meeting with myself and some members of the ANC. We walked several possible sites. We spoke with farmers market staff. We selected an initial site. Unfortunately, installation of the station was delayed because Capital Bikeshare was undergoing an upgrade that would allow us to include e-bikes, which we now have and are working out very well and are very popular. But unfortunately, during that interim period, while we were delayed to upgrade our system, the public health emergency began. We were asked to delay installation because the farmers market had changed its footprint to allow for social distancing, which we completely understand. So we looked around to see if there was any alternative locations. There was one proposed in street, which I will go to. Oh yeah, so this gives us sort of the lay of the land with the red block showing where we were initially hoping to put the station. The yellow block now shows where we are now thinking we could put the station. It would be just about here next to the Broad Branch Market. My colleague Greg Matletsky met with the market owners back in July, I believe, and they gave their okay to place the station there. They discussed some issues with trash pickup, and those were all resolved. I was not at that meeting, so I unfortunately cannot give too much more information. I'm going off of Greg's notes. He's on vacation. But it sounds like everybody was in consensus that this was going to work out. And I'll go back a moment. We could potentially put the station at the yellow location there, and then in the future, when the public health emergency is ended, move it to the red location if there was a desire to do that. That's, you know, picking these things up and moving them around is fairly easy for us to do. But at this point, you know, it's really the ANC's decision. So if you want it in the yellow location, we're happy to do that for you, and we can do that relatively soon. But if you feel like neither of these options works for you now, that's fine. We can revisit when the public health emergency is over. Probably, you know, I'm guessing in the springtime at some point. So totally your decision. You know, let us know, let me know what you decide. We'll take it from there.
Because I'm not on the computer, I'm on the phone. What is the red location?
Okay, my apologies. So the red location was the initial proposal. It is on the sort of the school grounds, and it is up against the retaining wall of the building there.
Okay, I would just like to comment. This is Rebecca Madak, the ANC for Lafayette. When we did the walkthrough, Aaron, I was there, and we had a board member from the market pushing the bike share. And at that time, it was probably due to my lack of contact with the market. The vendors did not feel they had a choice and a say. Now, yes, the COVID has spaced out the market, and we have pop-up vendors that are rotating in and out, but the market's under new management, and the community brought the market there in 2002, and they would like to expand even after COVID, and putting the bike share on the plaza would not allow them to expand. So I would say I would like to take that plaza location from the school off the board altogether. And I'm a little questioning a little bit, because when I asked you about putting it on the plaza, I said, can we remove it if we need to? And you said, no, once they're in, they're in. Now you're saying that it can be moved. But the main thing is, I also talked to you, and the ANC would have to rescind our previous resolution. So I'd like to rescind the previous resolution to put it on the plaza. And I would like to talk about the bike share as never being considered for the plaza. It can go elsewhere. The farmers market has no problem with the bike share. They just don't want it in a plaza where they pay rent, when it will impact them, their ability to expand, since the community brought them to the neighborhood and they want a more vibrant market. So I'm not comfortable with saying no, that the Broad Branch is temporary and it's going to move to the plaza after that.
And this is Jerry Mallets, and I'm going to agree 100% with Commissioner Madak. We're not talking about putting it in one place and potentially moving it to another place. We're talking about, this is the new proposed station, and this is what we're dealing with. We're not talking about doing it here for several months and then potentially moving it back to Lafayette. That's finished, that idea, and I think all we should be concentrating on at this meeting is the new proposed station.
Okay, yeah. Well, forget I said anything about the Lafayette Plaza. It is off the table. That is totally fine.
Yeah, but Jerry, and Aaron, I just want to make sure, because at the last meeting, which I wasn't at, I listened to it. It was talked about temporarily, and I haven't talked to Tracy. So does Tracy know it would be permanent there in front of her market? Anybody?
I'm not sure, but I
Okay.
imagine that when Greg discussed placing it there, it was going to be for the foreseeable future, since there's no end in sight to the public health emergency. So.
Yeah, but the whole thing is, after the public health emergency, we would object to being put on the plaza where they pay rent to have the market.
Sure.
There was, I wasn't at that meeting either, but I got a pretty full report on that. And the discussion was about putting it there, not about putting it there and then moving it anytime later.
Okay, I just want to make sure that Tracy's under that understanding too, so that we're all on the same page. Because at the last meeting, it was definitely talked about moving it after COVID.
I can't speak for Tracy. I don't see her on this call.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that we don't put it on the plaza, ever. As long as the market's there, the farmer's market.
Okay, Aaron, why don't you just walk us through what this would be, where it's being proposed right now?
Yeah, so what we would do, and I've got another picture here that's going to sort of show you what the configuration is. This is a station on 14th Street, but it would go so that the bikes pull out towards the roadway, and the station itself would be against the curb with a little bit of gap there for stormwater runoff. We would put up some of these bollards you can see here with the reflective tape on it, and that's pretty much it. It would, as we can see here, be about 6 feet wide, 52 feet long. A standard parking space is about 20 feet, so to eliminate about 2.5 car parking spaces, but you'd be replacing that with 19 bike share spaces, so more efficient use of space.
What about the corrals you talked about? You said on the bike stations now you're putting another extended area for corrals for the scooters and things.
Oh yeah, so not necessarily. We would have that option if you wanted a larger footprint. We could include parking for dockless scooters. If that's something you're interested in, we'd be happy to. We would add on an additional 8 to 10 feet.
No, I'm not interested in that. I just want to be clear that we're not expanding past what we're all agreeing on.
No, I was not planning on it.
Okay, because that was talked about at one point. And would people be dumping their scooters there?
I cannot control where people are going to park their scooters, and occasionally we do see people parking them near other bicycle infrastructure. But I think that unless you're already seeing a lot of scooters winding up on that corner, I would be surprised if this induced that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I got a question. This is Chris Frombaludi. Is this bike station going to have one of those lit advertising signs at the end of it?
There's no illumination. There is a panel which has a map on one side and sort of system information. And then on the other side, there is print collateral, which rotates through PSAs, paid advertisements, and things of that nature. It's a way that we help offset the cost to the taxpayer for this infrastructure.
Yeah, I might think that that's kind of inappropriate for a residential neighborhood to have a rotating advertisement. I'm just throwing that out.
So does it have to have the advertising, or can be put in without it?
It has to have the advertising as per our contract with Outfront Media. But I assure you that this is the case in the other 300 or so bike share stations throughout the city, many of which are in residential areas. So that is not something I have any control over, unfortunately.
I have a question. Looking at this, so in terms of the trajectory, if we do vote that the bike share would go in front of the Broad Branch Market, on the trajectory, are there points where if there are resident complaints or any other issues with the bike share, that those can be addressed? And if so, do we at that point deal with your agency? How does that process work if we vote to put it here in this location?
Yeah, if we put it here and then there's some sort of an issue in the future, I don't know, theoretically, if it gets repeatedly struck by vehicles or repeatedly vandalized or something really problematic like that, we would obviously try to come to some sort of solution. I gotta say, in your neck of the woods, we haven't had too many problems. I think the biggest problem I've had in your area is that when Little Beast opened, or before they opened rather, when they were building up the restaurant, their commercial pizza oven was dropped on top of the bike share station on Connecticut Avenue. And we did then move it across the street to be near the Safeway. So, stuff like that does happen. But we would have to take it on a case by case basis. But yes, you would if there was a problem, you talk to myself or Greg.
Okay. Thank you.
Aaron, there's a question on the Q&A about whether the dockless bike share is still available in the district. And I think it is, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. How many companies are still viable?
Oh, that's a great question. Providing bicycles at this point, we've got 2 companies, both of which have substantially reduced the amount of vehicles they have in our area, I guess as a result of lower demand. And then in terms of the dockless scooters, I want to say we've got 6 companies still active in the district. I'd have to double check on that. But pretty much all of the private dockless companies, be they bike or scooter, have substantially reduced the number of vehicles on offer because of the reduction in travel.
Presumably, if the travel came back, the dockless bikes would come back too.
Yeah, yeah. Though we're starting to see some of those companies close down permanently now, so
Okay.
it's kind of an open question.
Okay.
This is Jerry Mallitz again. How many Capital Bikeshares do you have in the system that are in the street in residential neighborhoods throughout the city?
Oh gosh, dozens, I would say. I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure. It's very common for us to do that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and what have been the problems that you've encountered with those?
You know, I would say we typically do not have problems with those. If it was a unsafe or dangerous thing to do, we certainly would not do it. So, you know, typically it works out just fine. I guess the only problem I can really think of is, you know, we have a finite amount of public space and we have to be careful about what we allocate it for its use. So there's always sort of competing needs and desires. Like, you know, recently, I'm just thinking of another in-street station on 11th Street Northwest in Columbia Heights. We had to move that station to accommodate a streetery during the public health emergency. There's a restaurant there that they wanted to do, you know, dining on the sidewalk and into the street. So we shifted the bike share station to accommodate that. But you know, that's sort of the only thing that comes to mind. We don't have issues with like vehicle collisions or anything like that typically. That's very, very, you know, very uncommon.
Maybe I wasn't as clear as I should have been. In purely residential neighborhoods like this, you're saying that there are many similar bike shares throughout the city?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, because when you just mentioned a restaurant, that wouldn't have been a purely residential area like this.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty mixed neighborhood, but yeah, I see your point.
Right,
But
okay.
yeah, I can send you some examples. I would have to go look at a map.
No, that's okay. I think you answered it sufficiently.
Okay, are there any other questions from commissioners or anyone else?
There's one question in the chat. Was the opposite side of Northampton, going west, considered for docking the bikes? It might be less disruptive to parents parking cars to drive their kids to Lafayette or to go to Broad Branch. Just curious, from Connie Chang.
You know, I'm not sure about that. My colleague Greg has been the lead on this project, and you know, he's on vacation. I'm filling in, and looking at his notes. If that was considered, he didn't note it, so I cannot answer for sure. So yeah, unfortunately, I cannot answer for sure.
Someone from who was there at our last meeting might remember this, but I thought that Greg said that they did look at that, but that there were some concerns about specifically about cars picking up and dropping off students on that side of the street, and that was therefore not as desirable as the other side of the street near Broad Branch Market. Does anyone remember that, or am I misremembering it?
I don't recall.
I don't recall either.
Okay, no one else can remember it then. Does anyone have any concerns about parking? I know there were some emails that we received after our last meeting where some people raised issues with regard to taking the parking spaces. Is there anyone who would like to talk about that?
Well, I have a question in reference to that, Randy. I see from the map, it looks as if, from the drawing, there are only 2 parking spaces that would be removed. Is that correct?
So the length of the station is 52 feet, and a parking space is 20 feet. So it would be about 2.5, and it's just a little hard to see from this rendering.
And along those lines, so is your drawing exact in the sense that it looks as if the bike share has to be a certain number of feet away from the crosswalk, and it's only taking, X number, 2.5 spaces, as you mentioned? Do you have parameters that you must work within for the placement of the bike share along that side?
Yes, we do. We do have to be a certain distance from the crosswalk, and the reason for that is something called daylighting. And the idea is you need, it's the same reason why you wouldn't have a car parking space there. You want to keep that space clear so that cars pulling up to the stop bar can see pedestrians queuing at the intersection. Because if we move the bike share station too close to the intersection, it might obscure pedestrians standing waiting to walk across the street.
Thank you.
So in reality, it'll take 3 parking spots away?
2.5, 3 if you want to round up.
Well, because you have to bring it back from the corner a little bit, right? So that would be 3.
But that area is also illegal to park a car in.
Yeah, I get that, but people do that to run into the market.
Well, I wouldn't consider illegal parking a legitimate parking space, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But sure, yeah, three parking spaces.
Because when school's in session, there's a very small parking lot for the teachers. So most of the teachers park in the neighborhood.
Okay, is there any other comment about that, about the parking or anything else? I think we need to move to a resolution if we're going to consider one.
Randy, I just want to make sure that I know there are people that I looked at the participant list that had feelings one way or the other about this. I just want to make sure that they know that if they have anything to say, they need to put it in the Q&A to be recognized, and if not, then we can move on. And I don't see anybody putting anything in, so, okay.
Okay, Jerry, you want to offer a motion then?
Okay, I propose that in light of this alternative proposal by DDOT that we support the placement of this Capital Bikeshare in this location on the southwest corner of Northampton and Broad Branch.
Can I add to that, Jerry? Can we also rescind the support of it on being on the plaza? Because we did pass a resolution on that. I'd like it on record that we're rescinding that.
Okay, that's fine with me. I'll amend the resolution to say, and at the same time rescind the previous resolution that we passed in terms of putting it at Lafayette Elementary School.
Right, and that was on December 10th, 2018 at that meeting.
Okay, I'll trust your judgment, your memory on that. I have no idea.
No, I pulled it up online so I would know what meeting it was. Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there, with that friendly amendment, is there a second?
I will second it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Jerry and Chris, I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Okay, all right. The resolution is adopted 6-0. Okay, could Abe, could we take down shared screen in?
Yep.
All
We
right.
can do that. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you,
Yes,
everybody.
thank you, Aaron.
Talk to you later.
Thanks, Aaron.
Bye.
They're not muted yet.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a presentation by Lieutenant Marlon Ollivierre. He is a lieutenant that covers our area for the Metropolitan Police Department in the Second District. And he asked us to make a presentation today to talk about a recent spike in property crimes and specifically stolen autos and theft from autos. Lieutenant, are you on the line? I think you are.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
We can certainly hear you. Thank you.
All right. First off, I'd just like to say that my presentation is about the overall crime in the last quarter, beginning from April 1st to June 30th. Okay. Overall crime in PSA 201 has declined, which is a good thing. But our biggest issue, like you said in the beginning of the presenting me, was stolen autos. The trend is up on Connecticut Avenue or the Business Beat area. The delivery guys are leaving their keys in the cars, and crime opportunity suspects are just jumping in and taking off with them. We find them probably a few blocks down the road or whatever, but they're reported. We went from one car last year, 2019, at the same time period, to 11 this year, which brought us to 1,000% increase. Year to date, we up 467%, which is 17 just for the year this year alone, compared to last year 9. So my thing is, we've been out there putting out flyers on cars and writing the delivery guys actual NOIs, tickets for this, because it is a citable offense, leaving a car running unattended. We don't get too many of them in the neighborhood as much. Every once in a while we'll get, in the neighborhoods we'll get, a delivery guy again, or somebody running into their house, and somebody will jump in their car and take it. The biggest problems in the neighborhoods, in the residential areas, are people leaving items in their vehicles, such as car keys. They leave car keys in there. People from outside the neighborhood will test the doors, and they will open, and find the keys and take the car. They will also leave like computers, iPads, phones, and stuff in there, and people do break into them. It doesn't matter if the car is parked on your driveway, in the driveway of the house, they will do it. We've been we've having to close a few cases, but it's just not enough. And the biggest thing I want everyone to take from this is to let people in the community know, out of sight, out of mind is something we said in the military. If they don't see it, it's not there for them to steal. So, and that's our biggest issue. A burglary went up 2 this year. We only had 2 burglaries so far, and let's hope that will be it for the year. Okay. The PSA 201 compared to other PSAs are doing very well on crime. However, the stolen autos, theft from autos are our biggest property crimes right now. Any questions?
Well, Lieutenant, we really appreciate your coming and reminding us of this. This has been a perpetual problem, a chronic problem in the neighborhood. And it is, as you mentioned, a crime of opportunity, and one that can be eliminated if people are just more careful and just cognizant of not leaving things in their car, and particularly not leaving the keys in the car. So we really appreciate that, and we'll try to get that word out as much as possible. The other commissioners have specific questions that they'd like to ask.
I have one.
Abe?
Yeah, Lieutenant Ollivierre. First of all, how do I say your last name? Let me make sure I'm getting that right.
It's Ollivierre.
Ollivierre, got it. Lieutenant Ollivierre, first of all, I just want to say thank you for presenting at our ANC tonight and for the work that you do. We've had the opportunity to communicate a few times about different matters, and you've always been really responsive and helpful, so I appreciate that. My question is, I think, there have been a number of officers with the Second District who presented to the ANC during my time on the ANC, and have said a somewhat similar message around property crime being the most common crime, thankfully, honestly, as opposed to violent crime, and thefts from autos being the most common crime among that. And the recommendation around not leaving items in cars, locking cars, I think I've heard that recommendation. I'm sure you've made that recommendation many, many times. And it seems that either that is continuing to happen and then crimes are continuing to be committed, or something is sort of being missed. And so I wonder, like, what more can either the ANC or other folks in the community do to really either get that message through, or if it's something else to do something else that would help these types of crimes go down, not just in our neighborhood, but really throughout the district too.
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as what we're doing, I'm trying to get my guys do more patrolling up there in the business beat. Also have them respond to the neighborhoods. Whenever a call come out, they go talk to the people, obviously, but not only do that, but try to do a follow-up. Whenever I get a complaint, I send a sergeant out there with an officer to try and figure out what's trending in the neighborhood at the time. As far as the neighborhood, what we can do to get this message out is just we have like a meeting like this or any kind of gathering, like the farmers market we talked about. Maybe we can get up there and start handing out flyers to the people in the neighborhood, because it is really a bad issue in Knollwood with the stolen cars. I've worked in the 7th district over in Ward 8, Ward 8, I believe, and the stolen autos are not as bad as this. In my 10 years, we do more recovery of stolen autos over there. People bringing them from other districts or Maryland or Virginia jurisdictions, I like to say. It's mostly the delivery guys. We have contacted the managers, the supervisors for these delivery companies. We've contacted them. We've sent them letters. We've actually spoken with them. And for some reason, these guys just see it as easy to just leave the car running, run inside, thinking it's going to take them 2 minutes. In reality, sometimes it takes them up to like 10 minutes. You know, and it is a real big problem. As far as the neighborhoods, yeah, getting the word out to people in the neighborhood would really help. You know, that would also locking your doors. I'm talking about the homes, locking the doors and the windows at night. You know, those type of things. It's not for your property, but for your safety. You know, leaving your keys in, you know, with your registration. Let's say you park the car down the street with your registration, leaving your keys in the car. You know, people know where you live now. It could lead to other crimes. So we really need to get this word out. Take your keys out of your car. Take your property out your car. If you want to put your property in your trunk, don't park the car where you're going to leave it for the night and then put the property in. You need to do that at another location. Maybe when you get out your office and you want to put your computer in the trunk of your car instead of you know, putting it in the trunk of your car in front of your house. At that point in time, people see what's happening and they know the computer's in the car. So stuff like that we need to get out to the community. The farmers market is a good place to start handing out the flyers. And now that I'm hearing about it, I'm going to start sending officers down there when they're open to start handing out the flyers and talking to the community about keeping the property safe.
We're open every
Thank you.
Saturday, 9 to 1. I'm there. I'm the gatekeeper for mask.
Okay, I'll make note of it, and I'll have them out there. Next Saturday, you'll start seeing them.
Yeah, people line up at 8:30, so just so you know.
Okay, most definitely.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We have 2 questions in the chat, but if the other commissioners, I'll do those first. We should do those first.
Okay.
Shanda, did you have a question? Okay. All right, Abe.
Yeah. So 2 questions from Michael Zeldin. First, how is the 2nd District coordinating with Chevy Chase Village Police in Maryland on the question of these crimes of opportunity?
Right. So we actually talk with them, Chevy Chase Police, and some of these suspects do come from Maryland. because the border is right there, it's very easy just to walk back and forth. So some of them do come from Maryland. I want to say some of them are homeless population up on Connecticut Avenue, but it's really not that big of a deal with the homeless population up there. It's mostly either they're coming from across the street into Maryland, up in Connecticut, or some other place. Lately, we have had a few that actually live in the neighborhood, in Northwest neighborhood, and some from Southeast as well. So they travel. Suspects travel. You know, so it's and we do work with Chevy Chase to identify who we can and track with them. Montgomery County has tracked a few over into Southeast. Like I said, we do recover a lot of cars over there. When we have tracked a few in Southeast and made arrests over there. So yes, we do work with them.
Okay, and then the second question is there, he said, can you also get the word out about how RFID protects your keys from being accessed remotely? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am familiar with that people do duplicate signal and send it to the cars. And that's a whole nother line of auto theft that's going on because they're doing it at night. Yeah, you know, they have, I want to say, actual machines that they buy offline on the black market and stuff, and they actually duplicate RFID and steal cars. So that's a whole another auto theft situation that we haven't really seen much of that around here. I haven't in my 18 years, but I've heard of it, and I'm familiar with the concept.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
Word out.
Thank you, Lieutenant Ollivierre. I don't think there are any other questions from residents, and also I know we got to keep moving with our agenda. So
we really appreciate your coming and participating in our meeting. That's been very helpful, and we'll try to help you get the word out.
Thanks, guys. You have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is related to Knollwood, and there are a couple of issues that they would like to talk about with us. And Paul Bricker, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Knollwood, is here. He's been at many of our meetings before. Shanda, you want to introduce this subject? You're muted. Can you, having trouble unmuting? I'm not sure we can do that remotely.
Try *6, Shanda. Okay.
Meantime, Abe, can you go ahead and get Paul Bricker into as a panelist?
Sure.
Okay, Paul, if you want to unmute yourself too.
Okay, how's that? Can you hear me all okay?
Yes, yes, we can.
Excellent, okay.
Shanda, what would you like us to do? Go ahead. Okay, all right. Paul, we appreciate having you here again. I know you had two topics you wanted to talk about. The first was stormwater management program that Knollwood has implemented, and maybe you can tell us about that. And I think Eileen Craig from the Nature Conservancy was going to be with you. Shall we make her a panelist too?
That would be wonderful, Eileen. And then Steve Laurie from Triangle Contracting.
Okay.
He'll be on as well, and he's the prime contractor. And the Nature Conservancy is actually the program manager. So I'll introduce Eileen here. I got a few things I wanted to talk about to kind of set the context.
Thank you. I have my mic back. Sorry about that.
Okay, I'll let you handle it from here on, Chanda.
Okay, but go ahead, Paul, if you wanted to set it up.
Okay, great. So first of all, it's great seeing all of you. I haven't seen you for many months, and I appreciate you working behind the scenes, all the ANC commissioners, so thank you. So we're doing well at Knollwood. We have been now COVID-free for over 100 days. We've administered over 3,200 tests. We test everyone who walks in the door, who works there, employees who come back from vacation. We're just really disciplined about our testing, and I think it's done us very well. April was a brutal month, but we have not had a resident test positive since the 1st of April, and we have not had any employee spread during that whole period. So the employees are doing well. The residents couldn't be happier, and I just wanted to give you that. We're just we are a total believer in testing because of the asymptomatic nature of this virus. So we've been working with the Nature Conservancy for 2 years on a stormwater program at Knollwood that catches all the stormwater that comes down our main parking lot. It's known as Lindsay Drive. It has historically gone straight into the storm drains, and we're right there on Rock Creek Park. So Eileen is going to talk to you about the project. We partnered with them literally 2 years ago. They've worked with DOEE. They've worked with the Committee on Fine Arts because of our proximity to the park, as well as the DC Board of Zoning. We've ceded our tax credits to the Nature Conservancy because of the investment they're making in this project. And from this, we believe this will have a significant impact on reducing pollutants flowing into Rock Creek Park. They're a wonderful partner. And they've got an immense amount of patience, and we're very excited. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eileen to talk to you about this project. Randy, I have notified the Knollwood neighbors that we were talking about this tonight. I don't anticipate any challenges there. I have kept them informed, but this has taken a while. COVID didn't help matters, but we're excited because we're getting ready to turn dirt here at the end of the month. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eileen.
Great, thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I have a few slides just so everyone can visualize the work we're doing. So let me bring that up. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Eileen, I just re-enabled it, so if you try again, it should work.
Awesome, got it. Okay, great. So this first slide shows what Paul was just discussing. I wanted to set up, the goal of the project and what we're working towards. So our goal is to treat the stormwater that comes off of the parking lot here. So it'll treat this whole parking lot running down to about here. And what we're doing here is putting in a trench drain across the parking lot to collect the water. And this area here is where the stormwater rain garden will be built. So the goal of this is to then treat the water before it enters into Rock Creek. So to kind of help visualize, this isn't exactly what the final product will look like, but it kind of gives an idea of what we're going for. It'll be a depressed rain garden within the grassy area and landscaped. This is the plan set for the actual stormwater facility. So here you can see the parking lot. I know there's a lot going on, so I'll try to just point out the key features. There's the trench drain here that will collect the water and pipe it across. And here is where the stormwater rain garden will be. This will have a retaining wall because of the grade, and it is designed to match the other stone walls on Knollwood property. So to give an idea of our construction schedule, we plan on starting within the next week. We'll start putting in all the erosion sediment controls. And then once DOEE has a chance to review and inspect those, we'll go into actual construction. From there, we go into storm drain installation, constructing the bioretention facility. All of that should finish around February. And then depending on timing, we'll probably actually push planting more to March just for a good planting season. But so actual construction should finish end of January, early February, with planting in March to complete the project. And then maintenance of the facility after it's constructed. We have signed a contract with Knollwood that will be responsible for maintenance for a 12-year period. The official contract with that we usually sign as far as who does the maintenance at the end of construction, but we have some other projects without the district, and it's normally, you know, at least once a month after large storms, we have the maintenance team out, and then we also go out to check the project. So that's kind of the big picture, so I'll open up to any questions now.
Eileen, how does this compare with there's a stormwater catchment place on the other side of Knollwood on Nebraska Avenue? How does this compare with that? Is it going to be similar or different? That one has water in it all the time. Is this one going to have water all the time or not?
So this one it's designed to drain within 24 hours of a storm.
Okay, so it will not have water, it will just...
No, only after, yeah, it'll just be planting. It'll only, after large storms, it should be fully drained after a 24-hour period.
And then I have a question. I see that you mentioned you're going to have regular maintenance once it is installed. And what is that schedule? Do you know it at this time? I see here you typically say once a month or after storm. What are have you worked that out as yet, or?
Yeah, so we will sign a contract with an actual maintenance team after construction's complete, but we have done other projects, so this is our model for those other projects. But yeah, so it would be, you know, monthly, and that's, you know, cleaning out the stones, checking the planting, weeding, all of those things, and then, you know, making sure after a storm that it is functioning as planned. And so that's things like if we see standing water longer than we should, that's a clue something's wrong and we know to go in and fix what's causing the issue.
Okay, any other
question? Yeah.
Hey.
So first of all, I just want to say I think this is, I support this project 100%. I'm not even sure if we're taking a vote on it or anything, if we need to demonstrate our support, but I do. I think it's a good use of resources, and will hopefully reduce runoff into Rock Creek Park, as Mr. Ricker said. So I did have one question though. I know that hill is frequently used for sledding or dog walking or other kinds of recreational activities. Sledding, not so much recently. So I think it's sort of two parts. One, what efforts can you make to make sure that people are really aware and are not getting too close to the project when it's under construction? And then two, is there any sort of space that will be left? Will there be any space left for people or kids to engage in those kinds of activities? It's a little hard to tell from the drawing. I don't think that's your fault in presenting. I think it's just, you know, I'm not great at reading those yet.
Yeah, I know, and these construction drawings can be hard to read, which is why I kind of tried to put in some of the pictures too. So as far as during construction, you know, we'll have all the LOD safety fence marked out, so that should be pretty clear. The actual facility itself, since it has some depth, is going to have a fence around it, and that's also for, you know, safety of the residents. But there is, you know, still, it doesn't take up the whole space, so there's still space around it, you know, for community to use, community activities.
So Abe, if I could, so the world-class bobsledding hill at Knollwood will not be impeded by this project.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. It's actually, as you see this chart, you see where Lindsay Drive bisects. So the actual bobsledding hill is further down to the south. So that right there where the cursor is, that's where the slope is, and that's where there's some wonderful sliding there. All we need is some snow, and we'll be in business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I've also noticed in walking by there that I know you went through a major program of planting a lot of new trees, but the trees were omitted in that area, so that there's still, the bobsledding area is still there.
Yeah, and
I was reading this all wrong. I thought the top line was Oregon, but that is Tennyson.
No.
Got it. Okay, now great. I feel very assured.
Yep.
Then that leads me to my next question, just in terms of the residents on Tennyson. While I definitely support anything that can be done to, support the environment and to make it better, I just want to make sure that you're working with the neighbors or talk on Tennyson Street and talk about how your project will impact that street, if at all.
So there's a group of neighbors. They're called the Knollwood neighbors, and I've kept them informed. Prior to COVID, I had them over and talked about it, and I also let them know that we were briefing this tonight. So it is our goal that there'll actually be benches that the neighbors will be able to, we let them use the property to do dog walking, and there'll be benches where they can sit. They've been very excited. We're going to do this because of our proximity to Rock Creek Park. That said, there may be some neighbors that are upset, but there's not a lot of neighbors right there. I think I have 5 that are located right across Tennyson. So the construction will be closer. It won't be right on Tennyson. It will clearly be visible when it's going on. And if the neighbors come over and want to talk, I'll be glad to talk to them, Chandra.
So Paul, will you be, as far as the neighbors, are the main point of contact in terms of any issues, if any, during the project at all?
Absolutely.
Thank you. This is great.
No, we've been working with the Nature Conservancy literally for 2 years on this project, because all you have to do is you can see the parking lot this large. We have about 150 parking places. And so with buses and first responders using this, it's just we believe this is going to really cut down on pollution into Rock Creek Park. And it helps us with our lovely kayak fee that I'm so endearing to Knollwood.
Right.
I'm just curious, who's paying for this? Is it Knollwood paying for it? Is the city paying for it? Or is it grants, money? What's the story?
So
yeah, I can take this one. So we're paying for it. It's through a new kind of innovative funding. Nature Vest is a branch of the Nature Conservancy. So it's trying to get more private investment into environmental projects. And then part of the goal is, I won't get into all of this unless people are interested, but DC has a stormwater retention credit market. So we will be able to sell what we're storing to developers who are needed to meet regulations. So that'll help kind of pay back the cost.
Strange. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, if there aren't any more questions on the bioretention piece, part of tonight's presentation was also to talk about Knollwood in terms of the Oregon Avenue construction project and the interface with that. Randy, how did you want to handle that? Do you want to take questions on the bioretention before we move on?
I don't think there were any other questions, at least not in the Q&A.
Randy, there's one in the Q&A. Sorry to interrupt. There's one.
I saw that, but it wasn't really a question, I thought, for Knollwood. It was a new one. I hadn't seen this one before.
I guess this is more for Eileen. And Michael Zeldin asks, it would be great if your construction vehicles, I imagine this is the contractor who's working on the project, could approach Knollwood, not on Tennyson Street. As it is, Tennyson Street has a steady stream of cars traveling to and from Knollwood, there's a sign on Tennyson and Western directing cars that way. I'm not sure if that's feasible or not, but that's
So
Mr. Zeldin's
we're
request.
going to create parking in our area for all the construction vehicles, but Eileen and Steve, if we could just primarily use Oregon straight into Lindsay and avoid Tennyson, that's really what they're talking about. Tennyson is a very busy street. We have a lot of walkers and it's tight. So if you can, I think it's come up Utah to Oregon and then come in Lindsay that way and avoid Tennyson. That's what that question's about, I think. Chandra, do you agree?
Yes, and then we always want to make sure, and as I'm sure you all have been great about this, just ensuring we coordinate with all our neighbors, since we have been dealing with the Oregon Avenue project as well. And so we want to make sure the residents have as small as amount of intrusion as possible.
Yeah, the Oregon Avenue project is going to be all concentrated south of that point during your construction. So you should be able to complete the construction, I think, before they get to that segment of Oregon Avenue.
Right, definitely, but still, just love coordination. We know things can happen, but just to ensure that their voices are heard too.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, I'll work with Eileen and we'll put a flyer out and we'll just hand deliver them to all the neighbors that are right there on Tennyson.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay.
So can I go ahead and tee up the next one?
Yes.
Okay, so Eileen and Steve, I think you're free. Escape. All right. So the next issue we wanted to talk about is we're phase 3 for the Oregon Avenue expansion, and the residents are very aware of the cutouts that the stormwater along Oregon Avenue that's flowing into. The concern is that there's a number of these when you look at the engineering diagram of Oregon Avenue in front of Knollwood that are going to go immediately in front of us. And as we see the maintenance or the lack thereof on Tennyson, and there's a significant amount of concern from my residents. There's a safety issue as well, but it's really aesthetics. And you know, when we work with the Nature Conservancy, they're going to come in and maintain our bioretention project, and it is just I'm not exactly sure what the city's plan is on maintenance of these things, but they overgrow, weeds get in there, and they're unsightly. And at some point, my residents are concerned about this, and they want to make sure there's a plan for maintenance of these bioretention cells that are being put in front of us along Oregon Avenue. Yes.
Thank you for bringing that to us, Paul. And our ANC has definitely heard your concerns, because Commissioner Speck has reached out to the representatives of DDOT who are working and coordinating with us on the Oregon Avenue project. And so with that, our commission invited them here tonight to give us an update on what exactly they're going to be doing. From the letter that we received, we know that there are going to be exactly 42 low impact bioretention cells along the 1.7 miles of the project. So we have invited them here tonight so that they can, one, give us a presentation on the status and whether or not it is going to infringe on Knollwood. Sorry, you may hear my doggy. He wants to attend the meeting. And then two, aside from their presentation, it'll give you an opportunity as Representative Knollwood to ask some questions, as well as other residents who are attending tonight. So
Thank
with
you.
that, thank you. Randy, did we have, I know Ms. Kendrick was supposed to attend.
Jan is, Abe has put her into the meeting. So Jan, you want to respond?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Jan.
Okay, I'm hearing just a little bit of feedback, so I'm going to turn it down on my end. But I'm here. I have my colleague Peyton Manning, as well as our design engineers and landscape designers who are here to address any of your concerns.
Jam, can you tell me the names of the folks who you'd like to have be able to speak, the designers?
The landscape designer is Oliver Bone.
All right, I'm gonna promote him to a panelist too. And who else?
and Bharat Bhargava.
All right.
And we may
One
have,
second.
Joe may be on the call as well.
I don't see any Joes. I just, Bharat and Oliver are now panelists. There are
Okay.
two folks who are calling in on the phone. So if you happen to know Joe's number, or if those folks are on the phone, can text you if one of them is Joe. We can
Okay.
promote them as well.
He has an 856 number area code. No?
Yeah, no one with that number. So looks like
Okay.
we're going to go with Oliver and Bharat.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. So I saw your email, I received it, and I appreciate that. And they are here to address any concerns that you may have. I think that you mentioned the LIDs that are on Tennyson, and those really aren't a comparison to what's on Oregon. I don't know if you've been down on Oregon Phase 1, but our bioretention ponds are built into the sidewalk.
Yes.
So there's no bump out. But I'll let the experts speak on that if you want to address questions to them.
Yes, and I guess the main question are just if they could describe where they are and how it relates to Knollwood, and specifically because the residents had some concerns that those would cause problems in the boundaries in that area. Just specifically talk about that and Oregon in general, since we have you.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll turn it over to Oliver, or maybe I don't know, Colonel, if you had some questions that you wanted to address directly to them, they're here.
Great. No, I'm all ears.
Okay.
Okay, I can answer the first one. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm not. Okay, good. So there are 4 bioretention planters, and they're located on Oregon Avenue between the sidewalk and the curb. I believe there's 3 of them which are going to be downstream from the driveway, so south of the driveway, and 1 which is north of the driveway. They are approximately 4 feet in width. They vary in length. They're different from the one at the intersection because the one at the intersection is actually a bulb out, so it projects out into the roadway. And these are parallel with the curb. The appearance of these bioretention cells is native plant material that can sustain the stress of droughts as well as standing water for a period of time. So I know the common concern is aesthetics and the appearance, and you know, it's a little bit different from a garden. It does have a little bit more of a wild appearance. DDOT has a program for maintenance. It's about 4 times a year. It's not, you know, adequate for some people who would like to see once a month or after every rainstorm. But you know, keep in mind what we're doing here on these projects. We are collecting all the runoff to prevent water quality issues at the tributaries of Rock Creek Park, as well as erosion problems at the outfalls. So there's no standing water. That's another concern that people have. Obviously, there's standing water if there's a rainstorm, but in terms of 24-hour standing water, mosquitoes is an issue. That's not going to be an issue because we have under drains at every one of these bioretention planters that will allow standing water to be directed towards the catch basins. We also have in front of Knollwood, you have a large stand of existing mature trees, and you will have a what we call porous rubber sidewalk to prevent the damage of the root systems of those trees. So you may have seen porous rubber sidewalk in the district. What the type of aesthetic that we're going to be doing as part of this project, it's going to be very much like exposed aggregate. So entire sidewalk, 1.7 mile corridor, is going to be exposed to aggregate, very much like National Park Service concrete sidewalk. And the porous rubber sidewalk is going to be very, very similar to that. So
we do have some that we have several locations in phase one, starting from Western through near the corner of Chestnut. If you are out, take a look at them.
Oliver, I'm going to share my screen, and we actually have like a zoomed in drawing of this, so I think it might be helpful just for anyone to sort of get a picture of where these things would be. So can you see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think what you're saying is that these blue.
The areas in blue.
Strips,
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and there'll be one above the driveway, and then 1, 2, 3 below the driveway. And then the porous rubber sidewalk is around this tree, so as to preserve it.
Correct. Yep.
So as you look at the face of Knollwood as it sits on Oregon Avenue, it's pretty much contiguous bioretention areas from Lindsay Drive all the way down to Nebraska. Is that correct?
Correct, with the exception of that existing large tree
So
that we wanted to preserve.
So is there any other areas on Oregon Avenue that has that much bioretention to their front?
Yeah, if you go, actually phase one towards Maryland, there's quite a lot of bioretention planters.
Near Western.
And they're constructed already, yep.
So I'm not suggesting that there's not a lot of stormwater on Oregon here. There is a lot. Our concern is the maintenance, and I don't think maintaining them 4 times a year is reasonable. So I don't know what the city's plan is when it comes to ensuring that these things aren't just filled with weeds, but it's a beautiful. That's a beautiful segment of Oregon Avenue, and our concern is let's make sure we've got an adequate plan to make sure that we don't have a weed garden there, and that they are that they add to the beauty of that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, and that's something that we're constantly coordinating with DDOT to understand what the program is like and how it can improve. I completely agree.
So if residents do notice issues with just one question, Becky, real quick. If residents do notice issues with the bioretention cells, they're not being maintained, my understanding is 311 is the best way to address that. Are there other options though? Because I think, that doesn't always leave people with the most confidence that that's going to happen quickly. It's an option, but are there other options besides that?
As far as I know, 311 is the best. And I would say, as I have been telling residents, we did the public engagement part of for the design, but constantly demanding maintenance, constantly demanding more from DDOT. I think that's the best way to go. I have to say I'm really pleased with, and I was really impressed with the public outreach that or the involvement of the community during the design phase, and the reason we were able to do a project, a design like what we're doing, what we're constructing today, is because of the involvement of the community. So continue reaching out to DDOT, I would say.
Yes, and I can also add, at least from the ANC's perspective, our hope is that we will continue, or not our hope, but we want to continue working hand in hand with you. So for instance, Paul, if Knollwood does have issues with the bioretention maintenance, that we can figure out a plan, or perhaps something that is not currently either on paper or in the works, but our ANC would continue to advocate.
Excellent. Well, we're super excited to get this. We've been waiting for a sidewalk for years, so
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and we welcome you to come down and take a look. We're still working. We're 90% done in phase 1, but the aesthetics of it is quite attractive. And everybody on this call has my direct information and contact information. So, and we'll be around for quite a while. So if you see something, please reach out to me.
No, absolutely. So this piece of Oregon Avenue is the finish line for the downhill bobsledding area.
Okay. I just wanted to add, I don't want to really be negative, but I had some of the very first bioretentions in the area. They have been horribly maintained because we were part of the River Smart project. So I don't think it should be incumbent on the community to keep reaching out to this. I think DDOT should be pushed from the construction side more, that they get on maybe a every 2 weeks or something program, instead of having us always be reaching out and getting non-responsive action, because our bioretentions are sad, and we've had them now for about 6 years.
And that's unfortunate, but we will definitely take this back to DDOT and let them know your concern. Where are you located? Which street?
The River Smart program was down Casada and 33rd Street. They put bioretentions in when they did the permeable paving. And then they've added a few more since then, but those were the very first ones. And people are always complaining. They always look like they're overgrown weeds. And I know it's supposed to be more of a wild area, but it would be nice if DDOT stepped up to the plate with us without us always having to be on their case.
Okay, very good. We'll pass that information along.
Thank you.
Let me ask another question too. I know I've had one person in my neighborhood ask how he's a gardener, and he would like to contribute his time to helping to maintain these facilities. Is it possible for citizens to adopt essentially a bioretention area and to say, okay, I'm going to help out in that regard. I like to garden. I'm going to make sure that stays clean, that the plants are thriving. Does DDOT have a program that permits that?
We can certainly check into that. I do know that on some of our other projects, we have schools where we build these at schools, and the students use this as a community service project, and keeping that clean. So that is certainly something we can take back. We love that idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I'm a big proponent of self-help. So, if people are interested in doing that, I think that would be a great idea.
Absolutely. We just don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
Right. Well, we'll definitely take it back to DDOT.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe did you get the questions in the Q&A?
Yeah, I think so. First, Connie says adopted bioretention is a great idea, Randy. I agree. Thank you, Connie. John Higgins asks, if there's no bump out to the street, is there any intrusion to the sidewalk which might affect seniors walking along Oregon? So I guess one thing that would be helpful is how wide is the sidewalk there? Is it 6 feet or is it wider than that?
I have, and this is something he can answer.
Oliver knows.
It's 5 feet wide. The sidewalk is 5 feet wide.
Got it. And is that pretty standard throughout the whole length of it, or is it more narrow around?
No, it doesn't get any narrower than 5 feet. At some places over by down by the school, it's 6 feet, and then by the whenever there's a driveway, it becomes 6 feet.
And you had the ADA requirements, if I remember, for the.
Right. I mean, thank you. Yeah, there were a lot of issues during the design phase, and 5 feet is what was determined. So, so there's plenty of space for people to get past these bioretention cells. I don't know. Does that answer? Yeah.
I think so. If there's other questions, of course, people should put them. Just real quick, speaking of questions, there were 2 questions much earlier about great streets and about local businesses applying for grants from Connie and from Michael. And so, Jerry, is it all right would you be able to potentially reach out to both of them and follow up about that? I don't want to take time right now because I know we're a little behind, but I didn't want to let it go and forget about it.
They could email me. They both have my email address.
Perfect. Okay. Back to our regularly scheduled program.
Yes. Well, Paul, were there any other questions since we have, Ms. Kendrick and Oliver? And Oliver, please tell me how to pronounce your last name. I want to do it correctly.
It's Boom.
Boom. Okay. And Mr. Boom, we have both of them here. Are there any other issues that or concerns? Do you think they've been addressed tonight, or other things we may need to do offline? Or
Nope. We appreciate the opportunity to engage, and thank you for the time. And again, thanks for all the ANC volunteers for your service. And if you want to come get tested at Knollwood, you come on over. Give me a call if you line right up.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Everyone.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you again for having us.
Thank you,
And do reach out to me should you have any additional questions or concerns.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
Oliver, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is with regard to Initiative 81, which is going to be on the ballot in November. And Kuduk, is that how you pronounce your name? Abe, can you elevate her to a panelist? I saw she was
Sure.
an attendee.
Okay. She should be rejoining as a panelist momentarily. Momentarily.
There she is. Okay.
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Yeah, thanks everyone. It's Leah Kuduk.
Leah.
Yeah, sorry.
Leah.
Every time I get promoted to a panelist on these things, my Zoom takes about 10 seconds to get there. So thank you for your patience.
Well, thank you for coming to our meeting tonight. I understand that you've been involved in the Initiative 81 and asked to make a presentation on it. I think this is a very good thing for our community and for the ANC, because frequently these initiatives don't get very much attention and people don't really understand them very well. And so I think it's very helpful to have an opportunity to hear from someone who understands it and can explain it to us. So take it away.
Certainly, yeah. Yeah, appreciate the invitation. Yeah, and especially with this initiative, you know, it's grown in the awareness in the public, but there is still some confusion as to what it actually does. So I'm happy to address that today. Like I said, thanks for having us, and or thanks for having me, and thanks to the constituents for paying attention. So I'm gonna I'll just drop some links in the chat. Informational links, or does that work or not?
That's fine. That's great.
Okay.
I think you should have access to being able to do that.
Okay. There we go. So there's a place to go for more info if folks are curious. But basically, Initiative 81, the legislation behind it is titled the Entheogenic Plant and Fungus Policy Act of 2020. It would effectively decriminalize offenses involving entheogens in the district with a two-pronged approach. It would make investigation and arrest of adults for offenses involving entheogens among the lowest law enforcement priority for Metropolitan Police Department. And secondarily, it would codify a public call to from the citizens of DC to the Attorney General for DC and the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia to cease prosecution of residents of DC for offenses involving entheogens. The entheogens involved, there's sort of four main ones. They're mushrooms that contain psilocybin and psilocin as the active principles, mescaline containing cacti, such as San Pedro cactus, DMT, that's dimethyltryptamine, DMT for short, containing plants. The most commonly known one of those is the plants incorporated in the brew called ayahuasca, a tea. And then fourth is ibogaine containing plants. The most common one known is iboga, native to West Africa. So this initiative was proposed back at the beginning of the year by Melissa Lavasani. She's a mother of two, a Ward 6 resident, and works for the DC government. She was inspired to launch this initiative after using entheogens to effectively treat postpartum depression after the birth of her second child. And in launching this initiative, several other DC residents have hopped on board who have similar stories of healing and growth from using these plant and fungi medicines, myself included. That's why I got involved. Use these substances to treat depression, anxiety, and really help me come to terms with my gender identity as well. And as a whole, this was an initiative launched in part to take the next step towards ending the war on drugs, which has clearly been a failure, criminalizing possession of Schedule I substances, which in doing so, we'll be able to redirect public safety resources to strategies that really work instead of locking people up and further traumatizing folks that might be having, personal mental health issues and maybe perhaps comorbid addiction. And the thing about these substances covered here is that a lot of these substances have actually been shown to help people heal from addiction as opposed to some other problematic drugs that are habit forming. Speaking to that, there is a growing body of evidence proving these results from reputable institutions like Johns Hopkins, UCLA, Imperial College of London, NYU. These research studies have shown that therapy using the plants and fungi covered are really uniquely effective in treating addiction, depression, anxiety, and also in use for cases of people who are needing relief dealing with terminal illness. And this is actually being, this research has led to the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, to recently grant psilocybin mushrooms a breakthrough therapy status for treatment-resistant depression, meaning that psilocybin mushrooms have been found to be substantially better than any other treatment currently available on the market for treatment-resistant depression. Yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. I'd be happy to open it up to questions. I welcome feedback from the commissioners, from the constituents, and I'm interested to hear discussion. If there would be any interest from the commission supporting a resolution in favor of the initiative or just in support of the work being done on this initiative. We did have one ANC 1C that did unanimously pass a resolution for your reference, but no pressure, just putting that out there.
I have a question. I'm unclear. Do you want to legalize it across the board or just for medical use?
So this would, the legislation behind this particular initiative would effectively decriminalize it. It wouldn't actually decriminalize. So the hope is that, this sends a signal to the council as like a public referendum on the issue of these particular substances that, we want them to take action on these medicines. It's not certain, even within our campaign, there's difference of opinions as to, what the best framework for regulation is. But we're really seeing this as a catalyst to move these, out of the ranks of criminalized substances and into, ways for folks to access them as treatments. Does that answer your question?
No, I'm still confused. So would you need a prescription for them or you want them across the counter?
Well, like I said, that's about 10 steps farther down the line than where we're at right now. I can't really speak to how it's actually going to look once these actually do become decriminalized. We are actually in the district hindered by congressional budget rider that's been in existence since 2014, named after Andy Harris, the Harris rider, the representative out of Maryland who sponsored it, that prevents DC legislators, including through ballot initiatives, from making any law that would reduce penalties or otherwise legalize any Schedule I substances such as these. So we're kind of hindered in that regard, just like DC is hindered from spending any money on abortions with similar riders from Congress.
Okay, then I have one other question. You were talking about what it's used to treat, but what about negative side effects if you use it? Does it impair you? What are some of the negative side effects?
Well, what we're finding is that people are using these, for healing in very intentional settings, and these are not substances that people are using, recreationally to just, go do, whatever, be out in the streets causing havoc. People are using these and risking arrest really by acquiring and trying to find these substances for healing, because there's so much research coming out showing that these are actually effective treatments for the mental illnesses that I mentioned. And I'm sorry, who am I addressing? I just see the phone number.
This is Commissioner Madak,
Oh, okay.
because I know that ashwagandha tea or whatever, when people travel, they use it, and it's not in a healing setting. So I'm just trying to understand what you exactly want to do here, so.
Well,
I think one clarification is important. Excuse me, sorry, getting a phone call as I'm speaking. Sorry, I think one clarification is really important. So this ballot initiative would make the investigation and arrest for a variety of practices related to these substances among the lowest priorities for MPD, and essentially say to the Attorney General, you should stop prosecuting residents for these activities. It wouldn't actually legalize it, change the criminal code, set up a regulatory structure, or do any of those things. Those things could happen later potentially, but for now it would just say, police department, you need to take this and make it a lower priority. Attorney General, you should stop prosecuting people. I'm getting that right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. I think I don't know if Becky, you're thinking something different, but I wanted to make sure that for everyone else that's clear, that we're not essentially talking about changing the law here.
Okay, I kind of get that, but I wanted to know what the end game is,
Sure,
legalizing marijuana,
I think it's worth asking.
Yeah.
I think it's worth asking because there's probably, like Leah was saying, there's, discussion about other things along the way.
Right. Because marijuana, you can use for you can get a prescription and get it. It's legal in some states, but federally it's still illegal. So I'm trying to understand where this is fitting in there.
Shanda?
okay. Thank you for coming tonight and educating us on this. I really appreciate it. I'm Commissioner Garfield. Thank you, Leah, for coming. The question I have is in terms of the council. It sounds as if you are currently going around all of the city to educate everyone. So in terms of that piece, what, if anything, have you done as far as the council and even the mayor's office?
I don't know if I can speak too much to that. It's kind of above my level, but I know outreach attempts have been made. There's been conversations that have been had. It's, due to like stigma and really outdated information about these substances. It's kind of politicians and public officials tend to want to stay away. So that was the reason that we went this approach instead. Because there is a lot of public interest in these substances, not only in DC, not only nationwide, but internationally. And, the movement is actually happening very quickly. So it's like I said, and to address the concerns about where this is going, unfortunately, it's murky. I can't really speak to where we're actually going with this. The hope is that a framework will emerge where these medicines become safely accessible to all DC residents. And the hope is that, at the federal level, there's a change in administration and DC gets statehood, and we can have, the power to, in the district, make our own framework for these substances. But we want to be proactive here with this initiative and send a message to the council that, you know, there is public interest in them doing something on this. You know, there was over 25,000 signatures on the initiative to get it on the ballot to begin with during pandemic conditions and in just a 2-month window. So there is really a lot of interest from DC residents to get something done.
Hi, I'm just one commissioner, but I just want to say that I fully support passage of this resolution. So thank you for being here, and good luck with this process.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm another commissioner. I also support it.
Yeah.
Okay, Abe, there was a question in the Q&A. You want to?
Sure, I'll tee that up. If decriminalized, so again, one potentially a step ahead, do you, or with this too, do you foresee expanded microdosing centers being set up like they have at Johns Hopkins?
Oh, I did not even know they had that. I mean, that must be some study that they have going on at Johns Hopkins for folks involved. Yeah, like I honestly, I cannot really speak to what exactly is going to happen. You know, these things, there's, these are a really unique class of substances that really require a special framework, and I just can't even really articulate what that might look like, because I think it's really going to be different than tobacco, it's going to be different than alcohol, it's going to be different than prescription medications. I think it's really going to be its own thing.
Thank you for educating us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And if there are any, Abe, you have a question?
I do. And this is really, I want to be really clear. Like, I actually think this is a good idea. And so I asked this really just in the interest of transparency and my own curiosity. Like, so a campaign like this, you know, it seems like there's a number of volunteers and there are people who've had real experiences themselves, but there also, it does require some money for the mailers, the signs. I don't know. It sounds like I think you said you're volunteering, but I imagine there may be some people who are not. Who pays for that?
Yeah.
How do people find out who pays for it?
Yeah,
if you're not aware.
The campaign is totally transparent about our funding. The primary funder is Dr. Bronner's. It's a soap company that is very passionate about this particular issue. If you read the Washington Post article that came out about our initiative, I guess back in July, or I'm sorry, in August, once we officially got on the ballot, there's quotes in there from David Bronner, the CEO of the company, explaining, you know, their whole position on this. They're also funding a similar psilocybin initiative in Oregon that's on the ballot this year. So yeah, they're the primary funder. We do have, you know, donations from, I think, over 200 individuals in DC, but yeah, we are getting substantial funding from, I guess it's from Dr. Bronner's, but it's through a PAC called the New Approach PAC, but Dr. Bronner's is the primary.
Thank you. I could have, you know, guessed for 1,000 years and I never would have guessed that. Thank you. I just put the link to the article in the chat if anyone's interested.
Can I ask another question?
Certainly.
How are the police weighing in on this?
I don't think we have an official input from Metropolitan Police Department as a whole. I have spoken with individual police officers who are in favor of it. And we do have some law enforcement professionals working in national groups that are openly endorsing our campaign, including most prominently the Law Enforcement Action Partnership, LEAP. They're on our website as well. But yeah, many police officers are in favor in understanding that their role in public safety is to address, you know, violent crimes that when the public is in physical danger, not these nonviolent offenses of simple possession and things like that.
But you have no formal police department coming out and supporting of it?
Not publicly at this point, but we hope to.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Well, it does seem to me that this is a better use of police resources to not have to focus on things like this. I also would support this initiative. The ANC typically, though, does not pass resolutions with regard to initiatives. We've been pretty careful not to do that. Individually, individual commissioners can take positions, but we haven't taken a position as a commission.
Totally
Okay,
understand. I don't think it was actually, I think one of the first, if the first ever that any ANC is like made a formal resolution of support when one C did it. But if any of the commissioners would like to publicly support in their personal capacity, feel free to email me and I can get rolling on that process.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Anyone has? Okay. Well, thank you, Leah, very much. We appreciate your coming and informing us about this and informing our constituents. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Okay, the last substantive item on the agenda is a report on the Commission's Task Force on Racism, and Shanda and Jerry have been spearheading that. I see from the list of attendees that we've now dwindled down considerably. And most of the people who are still on the line are people who are already involved in the task force in some way or another. But Shanda, you want to give us a report on the status of the task force and where we stand and where we're going?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Randy. And I will say that that train has left the station and we are actively working, as you, Randy, know, as a facilitator. There are over 25 residents in the community who have been working since we initially passed the resolution. And I'm looking down at my paper for the exact dates at the end of June. And so since that time, and residents who may not know the genesis, and if they're watching this tape later, our ANC passed a resolution basically to look at equity and justice issues within the Chevy Chase community. And the goal of the task force and the 3 working groups, which are community, education, and housing, are to pose concrete solutions in the form of a report to our ANC, and that would be this October 26th. So I can update you and say that since our initial resolution, each of the working groups have had at least 3 to 6 meetings, which means that residents who are interested and dedicated to these issues have been meeting pretty much on a weekly basis to, one, talk about and identify issues, to such as the various work groups, to educate themselves on readings and books and articles, and to talk to experts. At this point, a number of the work groups are focusing on winding down some of these ideas. We had numerous ideas in the form of drafts for which will culminate in our report. So we're looking forward to presenting that. As a member of the task force, I am on the community working group. I know Jerry represents education and you're on housing. And so with that, if you would like to briefly add anything to tonight, I ask you to join in at this point.
Well, our housing group has really done, I think, a remarkable job, and we've got some really dedicated people who are working on it. And we meet again tomorrow, and the candidate for Ward 4 Council, Janice Lewis-George, is going to join us. We thought it would be very useful to have her input and thoughts about affordable housing in our neighborhood. And we've also had the last couple of weeks at our meetings, we've had Susan Slater, who is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity, and she's been very helpful. She lives in the neighborhood too, and so she's been very helpful to give her insights and expertise. And so we've gotten some, I think, extraordinarily good contributions from the community. And I think we're going to have some very strong and important recommendations to make to the task force, to the whole task force, and then ultimately, hopefully, to the commission.
Thank you, Randy. Jerry, did you want to add anything?
I'll just mention a couple of things. So our work group, which is education and health, and it's mostly health as it's related to some of the other topics that we're talking about, we're in our writing stage now. We've identified our 5 main issues that we as a work group decided that we wanted to deal with, and people have their writing assignments now. There are other people that are not writing, but they're going to be serving as reviewers And what we're looking at is to specify recommendations that we think can work in our area, but then they're also able to be sort of pushed out to other parts of the city as well, if they are successful, which we hope they will be successful. And I see that there's one of our work group members, Stacy Beck, is on this call as well. And it's just been a very engaging group, and we really enjoy working together. So we look forward to finishing up our writing assignments and then preparing our entire work group report to then be part of the full task force report.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you both. And I will add to that, as a member of the community working group, that we too have narrowed our issues to at least 9 top priorities. We meet tomorrow to continue to perhaps narrow that down to our top ones. And our group has said that there are a number of issues, and I can say that a number of them are so anxious and wanting to work more on these issues that they would like to continue beyond our October date. And as a note, I will add that we have been contacted by members of other organizations in the city because they're very interested in what our ANC is doing on this issue. And also, as far as the people who've been in contact with me, they're saying that our ANC is being out in the forefront of taking to task and really looking at our community and how we, looking at our past, looking at our present, and how we can be better as a community. I know our ANC voted for the resolution which dealt with the fountain initially, but that was one issue within the community. And the good thing about the task force is that I think we're really taking a hard look at things and looking at beyond that, whether it deals with housing, education, healthcare, things that we can do as a community together to move forward, but to hopefully bring about positive change within our community. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Randy.
Okay. I'll mention one last thing in connection with your description of how the task force is being received elsewhere. The Office of Planning heard about our task force. They thought that could have some implications for the small area plan that is being developed along Connecticut Avenue. And they've asked to meet with Jerry and Shanda and me this week to talk about that. So I'm very pleased that they are picking up on this as well, and that we can include in the small area plan a lot of the ideas and the initiatives that we're considering as part of our task force. Okay, anything else on the task force?
No.
Any comments in the question Q&A or anything else? No, that's all. And nothing in the chat.
The last thing, I just would want to just let everyone know and thank all the residents who've dedicated their time this summer. It's been really important. People could be doing other things, and there's a lot going on in terms of COVID-19 and health. And so we really appreciate the time that residents are taking to really grapple with these issues.
Yeah, people really are dedicated to it. Okay, the last item on the agenda is our commission business. First, with regard to the minutes for our July 27th, 2020 meeting. Those have been posted on our website and on the various listservs. Any modifications or changes to the minutes? All those in favor of adopting the minutes signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Becky, aye?
Aye.
Okay, 6-0. Okay, there are some checks that we can authorize. I don't know how soon they're going to get actually written, but I've been putting out some money for our Verizon bills for May, June, July, and August, $609.42. That had accumulated because we hadn't been able to get access to our post office box to get the mail. But that's now been paid and we're up to date on that. So That's one check to be approved, and the other is for $222.54, which is the reimbursement for our Zoom bills for June, July, and August, so that we can continue to have these meetings like this. And we also use the Zoom for the candidates forum, which worked extraordinarily well. And so we're using it for a lot of our task force meetings as well. So we're getting good value, I think, for our Zoom subscription that we've got. So I would move that we approve those two checks, which would both be made out to me. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
And I
Thank you, Randy.
I will add that, Randy, that as you all know, Alan and Beach and I, who former Commissioner Beach, are working on the checks because for a number of months, the ANC was not allowed to get into the community center. And even now, we have an hour at a time. And so the plan is for those checks to be done this week.
Okay, and then also in that regard, Shanda and Alan have been working diligently to get our quarterly financial report done. And they're still in the process of working on that, but they've got essentially a pro forma of what will be in the quarterly financial report. And I circulated that earlier to commissioners today. And I've spoken with Gottlieb Simon about this. He's very anxious for us to get this completed. We still need, Shanda and Alan are going to meet again on Wednesday at the office to finalize it. But Gottlieb Simon is very anxious that we complete this, get it approved by the commission so that we can get our allotment by the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th.
Yeah.
So,
to complete it.
Yes. Shanda and Alan put together the receipts and the expenditures for the second quarter of the fiscal year. And that's from January to March of 2020. And so what I would like to do, and what I would propose to do, if Shanda agrees with this, is to get the commission's approval for these numbers so that we can go ahead and incorporate them into the quarterly financial report and get that approved and signed so that we can get it into the Office of ANCs as quickly as possible after Alan and Shanda get into the office on Wednesday. Chris, you have a question?
I looked at the report. Is there a reason that the debits are called credits and the credits are called debits?
No,
It's a little unreasonable there.
that's an inadvertent mistake there in our trying to get it, because just to give some background on it, for those of you who may not know, our ANC is required by law. You may hear my doggy, please ignore him. We're required by law to provide this, and for a number of years, of course, Alan and Stephanie and Abe and all of us have been working in the community center. However, because of COVID-19, it's caused logistical issues. So, long story short, this was within 1 hour of being in the community center, begging them to get in and preparing this. So we wanted to have the numbers. Thankfully, all of our ANC, including Abe and Randy, have our checkbook, and we've been very detailed and meticulous with the checks. So we had the accounting. So sorry, Chris, that was just a little oversight there.
I was just wondering if that was a DC type notation or whether that was a mistake. So I'm glad to hear it was a mistake.
Yeah, thank you for going into the community center. I don't want to be
Anyway, thanks for doing it. Thanks for doing all that.
I don't think any of us do. We still have our masks, and they barely want us to be there because of this phase, no one is really supposed to be there. So they're making an exception for our ANC because our dedicated office is there. Oh, yes.
Looks great other than that.
I won't tell anybody. It's okay.
We're not breaking the law. I just let everyone know. We're being legal.
Okay, I move that we approve that quarterly financial report pending the completion of the documentation and the other information that Shanda and Alan are going to put together on Wednesday. Is there a second? All those in favor? Becky?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0. Okay, thank you.
Randy,
Okay, fine.
do we need, Randy,
Yes, Abe.
do we need to approve this over email, like in the next 2 weeks before, like the final report? Is that part of what you're saying?
Yeah, well, we'll also have to have signatures on it. We have to have people
Got it.
sign. So,
Okay.
yeah, we'll send out the final as soon as it's available, and then we'll have to get signatures on it because that's the only way they'll accept it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I don't currently have anything for the September 29th meeting, any specific substantive issues. I'm sure a lot of the things that we're doing right now, we'll have more reports on the progress of the task force, racism task force, for instance, and other things. But if you've got anything that you have for that meeting, let me know, either now or later.
Hopefully we'll have an award on the Main Street.
By the 29th, it should be. Yeah, you should have.
I heard this could be the 28th, 29th, so that might be a possibility.
Okay. That would be probably a good idea to have a presentation on that then at that meeting, or at a meeting in the future, early in October. Another thing you might think about, and I didn't put this on the agenda, but we are not scheduled to have a meeting on the second Monday in October because that is, I think we call it
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Indigenous Peoples Day.
It's a holiday, right?
Right.
The holiday.
But of course, because the community center, we don't need the community center anymore. We could have a meeting then if we need to, or if we wanted to. So just think about that. We don't need to decide it now. But our next meeting would not be until the end of October. If we don't have a meeting on Indigenous Peoples Day. Okay, anything else? Okay.
We've got some neighbors who are interested in making some announcements about a pilot to get rid of mosquitoes in Hawthorne. So they might just do an announcement at the beginning of the meeting on the 29th. But if they're interested in more like a 5 or 10 minute thing, it seems like we have some space. So I'm gonna talk to them and see what they've got. I don't exactly know, but that could be a real public service.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. Thanks to all of those who attended. We appreciate it, and we will see you all on September 29th.